Hello friends, Patrick McFarland here of the Liberty Weekly podcast. Welcome back. This one is episode 94, and it is entitled My First 2 Weeks as a Lawyer. And check it out. You should be watching the video version because that is the best way to consume the Liberty Weekly podcast. But I'm reminded of an episode of Bob's Burgers. And if you haven't seen Bob's Burgers, it's a pretty good show. First 2 seasons were better than the more recent episodes, but my wife is a big fan of the show, and there's an episode, I forget what's happening, but Gene is the son of Bob, who owns a burger restaurant in like Boston or something like that, and there's an episode where Gene keeps like changing his life's goal. He's the child of Bob, and there's like a montage of him. Well, first he's like, this is me now, and it's like a montage of him changing these ridiculous like life dreams that he has, and it goes to a montage of him saying, this is me now, each time that he changes his life's dream, and in each shot he's in a different outrageous costume, and look at me. So if you're watching the video version, I'm a lawyer now, I'm wearing my lawyer suit and my glasses and stuff, so I thought that was interesting and kind of funny, but my cats are circling at my feet. So in the last 2 weeks, there's been like monumental, earth-shattering changes for me, as you would think. And so I started my first legal job. I was sworn in to the Wisconsin bar, I think last week Monday. Yeah, I think it was last week Monday. And I mean, that's how much things have really changed so quickly. And it's nothing like you would think. It's nothing like I imagined it, having being part of a legal practice. And to be honest, I don't really even know where to begin to talk about it because it's been so all-enveloping for the last little bit here. But if anything would convince you or make you realize that time itself is a very scarce resource, it's being a lawyer. And, you know, as with other professions, your billing comes differently, like your unit of service or unit of measurement is differently, but for attorneys our unit of measurement is time, and so time is money. That's especially true. So I think one thing that people on Twitter have been interacting with me, and I'll get into this as well, but people on Twitter have been interacting with me, and there was kind of a controversy on Twitter involving my Liberty Weekly Twitter channel. But I haven't really been using it for the past 2 weeks because I've been working 10-hour days from 8 a.m. until usually 6. I've been staying late just to try and figure things out. But yeah, I thought it would be, I wanted to talk about, you know, just my process of going from law school to being a lawyer, not to be self-involved or narcissistic, but someone on Twitter expressed, you know, it'd be interesting to follow the career of a liberty-themed lawyer going all the way through law school and then graduating, becoming part of the bar, and then interacting with the real world and changing, watching my career progress. And I've always kind of said that the Liberty Weekly podcast is kind of like a video diary for myself, even more so, because it seems like I'm talking to a brick wall, right? I mean, like, in front of me is a wooden wall, but it doesn't seem like I'm really talking to anyone aside from just getting in front of my computer and just doing a stream of consciousness thing. So there's going to be big changes to the show because time is a scarce resource. I haven't really figured out my routine yet, even after 2 weeks. And part of the so I think this really will be Liberty Weekly now, because the show is titled, and my website is titled Liberty Weekly, but I've been doing things bi-weekly or just once in a while, and I'm gonna try and get episodes out weekly, but sometimes, you know, things don't always go according to plan. Like this weekend my dad came up and we put an addition on my deck, and that took all weekend. So there was no time. I started recording an episode like this on Saturday morning, and I kind of stopped it halfway through because I wasn't feeling it, and I never got back to it in the weekend. So, well, I'll do some plugs at the end, but I wanted to kind of, let's get into me starting. My practice is, I'm in a small practice. My practice is a general practice. I have a boss. There's another associate at the firm. So it's 3 lawyers, me, my boss, and another associate. And we do a lot of stuff. And that's kind of the benefit of being a small town lawyer. That's why I always really wanted to be a small town lawyer, because you get the image of a country lawyer, someone who could show up in the big city and school a bunch of hot shots, and someone who is in touch with the community, is a jack of all trades, kind of a Renaissance man, someone who's self-educated and deals with these really interesting and funny small town controversies, perhaps sometimes. So that's what I always kind of envisioned myself being, was a small town lawyer. And one thing my boss says is, he's my mentor, obviously he's my mentor, but one thing he says is that he learns something every day, because you never get the same fact pattern twice. You're not doing workman's comp all day, every day. Which allows you to become an expert in workman's comp, but you're doing the same thing all day, every day. Or to be a personal injury lawyer is to have a bunch of cases that you're juggling, but also the same kind of issue every single time. You're in a very narrow part of the law. Well, our practice is a general practice. We do everything, which is good and bad, because it requires that I learn a shitload of stuff. Excuse me, I've been trying not to swear as much on the show, but it means that I have to learn everything. And one of my biggest takeaways is that law school, while I had a good experience in law school, and law school taught me a lot of things, law school did not, it's really hard to prepare someone for practice. I think that experience is the best teacher. I've told a lot of people that I see myself as being an experiential learner, and I think, Lysander Spooner didn't go to law school. Abraham Lincoln, although I hate Abraham Lincoln, he didn't go to law school, and he was, by all accounts, one of the greatest lawyers of all time. So you're getting the autodidact and the learning from experience and learning by doing. Well, the things that I've been doing, mostly drafting documents, like I'm working on a land contract, which is like a sale without a bank, having payments go to, it's kind of like a lease where the person selling their land will sell all the, so I don't want to get off on this tangent, but when you do a land sale contract, you have like all your property rights in a certain property are like a bundle of sticks. And a land sale contract is when you sell all the bundles, everything in the bundle of sticks except one stick, which is the title. But you sell the possession rights, you sell all these things, and so the people will pay you back in kind of like a mortgage with an amortization schedule. And so it's kind of like a sale, but it's a little different, and I've never dealt with that before. I have dealt with a residential offer to purchase, but I haven't done a land sale contract. So I was sitting in on a consultation with my boss and the clients, and I was paying attention, but I wasn't really paying attention. And then at the end, my boss is like, well, this is your case. And so I'm like, oh, I thought I was just watching you. So now I've been handling that, and it's been going pretty well, but I've had to learn all of it as I'm doing it and take forms that people in my office have done before, but just change them for the specific situation. And I did that. I'm handling a small claims case involving a semi-truck sale, and my clients, the plaintiffs, are suing the dealership because they don't believe that the dealership gave them the adequate amount of credit on their trade-in vehicle. And it involves financing and amortization schedules and rolled over payments and equity in the trade-in truck. And so it's really interesting. It's not what I pictured my first case to be, but it was supposed to go to trial last Thursday, and it didn't end up going to trial because I was just retained and I had a week to kind of look it over. So I got us some more time. And that's a really interesting case. Another one that I'm dealing with, and I just want to tell you guys what are the kind of cases that I'm the practice areas that I'm in, because it will come up in a controversy, the Twitter controversy that I kept referring to. And I think that Twitter thing is an important thing to address, but we'll get to that. So another case that I'm handling is not involving the courts yet, but I was writing some demand letters for a group of clients, or a couple of clients of ours who had a home built in 2014, and the contractors came in and they built the home, but they didn't finish the job. And in building the home, they damaged a bunch of things in construction, like deep scuffs in the concrete walkway that was just left, and a crack in the crown molding on a door that communicates between the garage and the house, the service door, and some other stuff like they allegedly did not install the sewer right, so there was backup and raw sewage in the basement. So they have dealt with these problems for about 2 or 3 years now, trying to contact the contractor. That's a tongue twister, but to contact the contractor and have them come in and fix these problems with their work. Well, the contractor has not responded and is unreachable. So what do? What do our clients do? They're sitting here with the house that doesn't work. Well, you could say that they were aggressed upon in a certain sense. I know that we deal with the libertarian theory of contract, and I have an episode on that. But you could say that their rights were violated in the sense that they're not satisfied with this contractual arrangement, and the contractor didn't finish the job. Well, what are they to do? We'll get into that, and that involves the Twitter controversy. So, but before I get into the Twitter controversy, just kind of talking, I wanted to cover more about what it's like. So when you're dealing with the law and when you're a lawyer, people look to you for the answers, and you have to have the confidence. And a lot of what lawyers will talk about is having something called imposter syndrome, where doctors get this too, I think, where everyone feels like they're pretending, like they're playing the role of a lawyer, like they are in the idea of Shakespearean meta theater, is that they're not really a lawyer, they're just playing a lawyer because a real lawyer would be more competent or have all the answers. And when you are trying to be a lawyer or learning to be a lawyer, you don't have the answers because you don't have the experience. And you've done the book learning, but book learning, as we all know, only accounts for maybe 20 or 30% of what you're actually doing. And when you're a lawyer, you have to have so many hats. You have to be able to, you got to be good at grammar and spelling. You have to be good at negotiating. You have to be good at people skills, talking to people, reading people, knowing what their worries are. And I guess you don't have to be, I'm talking about my specific practice is a general practice. You have to be good at math. You have to understand, have the ability to comprehend all these different areas. You have to be good at public speaking. You have to be good at, reading. And you have to be good at interviewing and listening and all these different things that you can't learn from a book. You can't learn from law school. And to be honest, a lot of the practice areas that I'm practicing in, I took no classes about in law school. And a lot of the lawyers around me have said this too. I didn't study probate. I didn't do wills. I haven't dealt with juveniles at all. I haven't had a murder trial or, all these different areas. I haven't dealt with Article 2 sales before, the sale of commercial goods. I didn't study divorce in law school. I didn't even take family law in law school. I did, but other lawyers, so you have to have the different hats that you can put on. And that was a little just kind of shocking. I mean, it was nothing like I thought it would be. Not really in a bad way, but just totally different in the way that you can't really comprehend. And you realize that one of the biggest realizations that I'm having now is that, morally speaking, and I know that ANCAPs like to deal, and this will tie in too to this Twitter controversy that I keep alluding to. But I think ANCAPs kind of fall victim to this idealized, you know, it's the allegation that you get when you're an anarchist, and you know, someone like maybe my parents, or someone like a law and order conservative would be like, oh, you're so naive. You would think that humans could just exist in the world voluntarily interacting with one another and being forced to make decisions that are in their best interest. How you're so utopian, you're so naive. I think there's a small amount of truth to that, because ANCAPs fall victim to this thought that there is a black and white of morality, is that something is either aggressive or something isn't, and that makes, you know, the aggression immoral. And well, I understand that, and I have sympathies for that. I think dealing in the real world is not dealing with black and white answers, and especially dealing in the legal field, there is no certain answer. There's rarely is a certain answer, a yes or a no. And this isn't, I don't feel like this is me sacrificing my principles, but just understanding that the world is a lot more complex, and you're dealing a lot with shades of gray. And the state, unfortunately, well, that's what the state does, is that the state creates more of these moral quandaries than a stateless society would. Because, well, we all know that, I think in some way the open borders versus closed borders debate is dealing with moral ambiguities that have been created by the state itself. Or like this, for instance, you know, in our society, there are people that cannot afford an adequate legal defense. That's why we have public defenders. Well, is it immoral to become a public defender? These people need adequate legal representation that they won't get otherwise. But your salary would come from the theft through taxes of everyone in your community. So do you let this person be have their liberty taken away without due process, or have their liberty taken away, period, by the state? Or do you represent them and take that stolen money? Moral quandary, gray area. What do you do? There's no yes or no answer here. I think, you know, a high-minded person could say, of course you don't take the stolen money. Don't become a public defender. Well, who's going to hire you unless you've handled cases before, criminal cases before? And, you know, your boss says, well, we're going to sign you up for the public defender calendar, and you're going to take these cases and cut your teeth and figure out what you're doing. And then people will privately hire you because you've had that experience. It's kind of like my friend is in healthcare compliance, and she's in this situation where she has all the certifications, she is very well qualified, but she has no experience. And everyone who's hiring wants 2 years experience. So what do you do in that situation? There's a lot of things like that. Or, you know, I'm not thinking of many off the top of my head, but there are a lot of situations that you confront like that in the legal sphere. A lot of gray area, black and white. What do you do in this situation? Kind of ethical and like the train tracks morality philosophy example, where, you know, there's a train and it's headed on a track, you know this one, and there's people tied on the track, but on the other hand, there's a bunch of people on this track, there's 5 people, but on the other track your mother is tied up. Do you kill your mother and save the 5 people, or do you kill the 5, you know, that kind of crap. So that's one thing I'm kind of doing, just trying to figure out how to manage these caseloads, trying to figure how to fight off that imposter syndrome, feeling like everyone's coming to you for the answers. Well, it's hard to have the answers because you don't have any experience, and you want to have, like, I have my first trial, and I'm kind of like, well, I've done a trial before. In practice, I've never really had a trial, but these people think that I have the answer, and I do. You know, I work hard, and I give them the best defense, or I, you know, prosecute the best case on their behalf that I can, and put all that time into it. But there's still the question lingering in the back of your head, like, well, am I worthy of this? They're trusting me with a lot of things. Am I right to do this? I'm handling lots and lots of very big things for people. And that's kind of it's a personal struggle, also just part of the profession, for better or for worse. I think that being a lawyer is kind of like an endless struggle with that, with constant challenges and constant new things and learning new things and being uncomfortable often and getting in front of people in new situations and knowing how to deal with it and trying to be because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your client and their satisfaction with the case. Whether you win or lose, the satisfaction of your client is the most important thing. And that's what I've learned from my mentor and my boss. That is the most important thing. Even if you lose, your client wants to walk out of that courtroom feeling like they had their side of the story told, and that the judge heard that side of the story and the judge considered it. And if at the end of the day they didn't win, then at least their story was heard and told. That's all you can do. So I've witnessed a lot of cool trials just recently. Just before I really dive into the Twitter controversy and the whole thing about I wanted to address Brett Kavanaugh too towards the end, but like I said, now with time being such a scarce resource, I'm only going to get, I think, one chance a week to really do this without pulling my hair out. So I hope that you guys will excuse this impromptu format. I know I've been doing like impromptu, not really off the cuff, but stream of consciousness, everything in one take for the past few episodes. And well, people keep downloading it because I keep putting episodes out. So you guys must appreciate something about this show. But so it's really nice to get away from Liberty Weekly for a couple weeks at a time. I know with this summer I've been jumping in and out with the bar exam and getting ready for all that and passing the bar exam, which I never really officially announced on the show. I thought I did, but then I went back to that episode and realized I never told anyone in the show in explicit terms that I passed the bar exam. But so it's been really nice to step back. I think being busy has meant that I can no longer fill the void of my time with Liberty Weekly, which is what I've been doing. But even obsessing with politics on Facebook and Twitter, and I know that a lot of you probably deal with this, maybe a lot of you don't, but kind of taking a step back and viewing it as a bystander, as an outside party, has been very healthy, I think, getting away from all this. I'm not in the loop, which is the downside. I don't have as much substance to talk about. I have still been listening to podcasts. I think I listen to every part of the problem. So probably every Free Man Beyond the Wall too, with Mance Raider, and there's Foreign Policy Focus. I listen to pretty much every episode too, and I don't want to leave anyone out. I have a lot of podcasts that I listen to, all my friends and everything. You can see my Podcast Addict app if you're watching the video version, which you should. So, oops. But these are all the shows, and there's more that I need to add as well, but you can see all those. So I kind of forgot what I was going towards here, but yeah, it's been good to take a step back. It kind of gives you a breath of fresh air. But man, I mean, ever since I was in law school and getting involved in ANCAPism and getting involved with voluntarism and really doing a deep dive on it and starting the show, it's been very easy to forget the fact that the rest of the country is living in the duopoly of the dual parties. Some of us are privy to the libertarian stuff, but coming back to my hometown and being in this small town, running into normies everywhere, people still stuck in this Democrat-Republican mainstream paradigm of politics and not opening their minds to other ideas and not really being educated on it at all. And one thing I've noticed too from doing the practice, from working, has been that people are really ignorant of, and I'm not saying that to, like, ignorant has a bad connotation, but people just don't know how the legal system works. They're not aware. They're trying to interact with it because they have to. Some people, if you deal out in the world, I guess maybe you probably already realized this, but some people really, there's a large percentage of people in this country that cannot write a full sentence. Or some people, a large percentage of people in this country who are functionally illiterate. Or they're writing at like a 3rd or a 4th grade level. I mean, for real, man. And it really, in some way, it gives anecdotal credence to this argument that central planners have, that, well, people are dumb, so they need a guiding hand. And maybe people are dumb because you think they need a guiding hand and because they've been in this system that you've created that has made them dumb. But the reality, I think, of life is that there's a lot of people out there, and lawyers included, who have no idea how these things work functionally. Lawyers included, I say, because lawyers don't have a clear yes or no answer. In order to get to it, you have to navigate all these things and do a lot of research and then figure out generally how it would work. And then argue it out, and then you get a conclusion. But a lot of lawyers even are doing a lot of research and trying to figure out how the law applies to their certain case. That's pretty normal, I think. Excuse me. So just kind of dealing with that. But yeah, so I'm just trying to think of everything here. So a lot of people are functionally illiterate. You get that, and they come to you for answers. And I think another thing about being a lawyer too is that in law school you can't learn all the substantive law. There's so much law out there and so many doctrines of law and specific nuances and cases. What you're really learning in law school is how to think like a lawyer and how to know where to find the answer when you need to find it, and how to advocate on behalf of your clients with that answer and apply a certain set of facts to a rule and get a conclusion, and then to be able to say why. That's kind of what you're doing. So, and one thing I wanted to address too is I've been getting email requests from people that listen to the show soliciting me for legal advice or to take their case or to do some legal work for them. Please don't. I would love to help you, but at the same time, I'm working in a very narrow sphere. Like I say, I do a general practice, but I wouldn't yet come to me being an authority yet outside the sphere of my practice and my firm. So maybe, 10 years down the road when I get some gray hair and I get some cases under my belt, then I would come to me asking for legal work. But unless you have like an issue with family law, unless you're getting a divorce or a custody battle, unless you want a will drafted, unless you're selling property and want me to handle the transaction, unless you have a criminal case, in all of these things, you can have all of these things and you want our firm to retain you, but you also have to be within West Central Wisconsin. Then you can email me and I can hook you up with our office. So, right, that being said, I think I kind of addressed what everything is like, and there's been such a deluge of new experiences and things. I really, like I said, don't even know where to start and where to talk about things. A lot of what I've been doing is going into my office and drafting things. I've been watching a lot of court. I've been sitting in on consultations with my boss. And then I've also been feeling my way through these things and learning, especially by drafting documents and things, but taking old documents and kind of rearranging it to fit our current clients' needs. That's pretty normal from what I understand. And I've also been trying to prep that trial that I was talking about with the semi-truck. There's another adverse possession case that I'm dealing with and I wanted to do an episode on adverse possession because I think it goes along with libertarian Lockean homesteading, is that if ownership of a property is being there and using it and mixing your labor with it, adverse possession is when you have done that, except you're doing it to someone else's land. So if you have a neighbor and you have an idea of where the property line is, but you are purposely mowing lawn over on your neighbor's property for 20 years, and you've done it continuously, openly, and notoriously for 20 years for the statutory period, and hostily without permission, then that land can become yours after 20 years legally through adverse possession. Lawyers call it a legal way to steal someone else's land, which if you go by Lockean homesteading, then there's not really a problem with it. But so I've been dealing with that case, and there's a case, it's where my clients built an addition to their cabin, and now 6 years later they're finding out that a corner of their addition to the cabin is actually sitting on their neighbor's property, and their neighbor found this out by doing a certified survey. So their neighbors lawyered up and then filed like an affidavit of ejection, or I can't remember the title of the document itself, but they're trying to reset the clock for the adverse possession 20-year statutory period. And if it came down to it, there could be very severe repercussions for my clients involving their property. And this is a good segue into the next portion. So, and I'm going to go here this was the Twitter beef. And so whenever I've taken a page from Tom Woods' book, that whenever people give me crap on social media or anywhere, and you wouldn't believe the horrible vitriolic things that people say on the internet, because it's easy to say them behind a keyboard and you don't have to put your face out there like this. I've been taking a page from Tom Woods' book, and whenever people send me hate mail or hate comments or anything, I just put it in my email list, and then I can share that. There's about 150 people on my email list. And if you want to be on the email list, go to libertyweekly.net/email, one word, and you get copies of my ebooks, the papers that I've written in law school about nullification, the war on drugs and domestic violence policing, and competing dispute resolution firms and security agencies. Those are 3 ebooks that you will get through signing up through that email list, and you'll get the entertainment of looking at the things that people send me. And so I really am having to, let's see, find this. I wanted to pull it up, but didn't get enough time. So let's see, because like I said, time is a scarce resource now. And I didn't want to dwell on this too much because I don't want to come across like I'm in Twitter drama all the time and I'm whining to my audience about this Twitter drama. So I had this tweet, if you're watching the video version, and if you're only listening to the audio version, which is probably most of you, I made a tweet 2 weeks ago on Monday, my first day as a lawyer, working as a lawyer, and I said, this week is my first week as an attorney, so I'm going to get my bearings, and then before I put out new content. Here's a picture of my office, though, and I tweeted a picture of my office, my first office, and this was a big moment for me because I had gone through all this schooling. I had finally arrived at the final destination where I'm hopefully going to make money to pay off my house for my wife and, you know, all of the educational bills. And walking into my office for the first time was a really big moment for me. So I tweeted about it, and it was pretty cool. Well, the first response is from this guy, Bastard Chris, on Twitter. And I'm not going to bleep him out because he doesn't watch the show anyways, never seen any of my content at all, but feels like he's self-important enough to make this comment saying, so you promote liberty while participating in a criminal monopoly. Pathetic, I'd say. But I guess there isn't a contradiction there, considering, quote, liberty is merely an exemption from some mafia coercion. As you attorney slaves to their owner, as I had torn slaves to their owner, remember that you are a criminal. So I'm a criminal because I am because I want to trade my goods and services with voluntary people, and the state has a monopoly on this sort of thing, so they forced me to join the State Bar Association, which is, the State Bar Association is a private entity that the government gives a monopoly to in regulating the legal profession. So lawyers will say that the legal profession is quote-unquote self-regulating because the government has taken a private organization and given it a legal monopoly on licensing and regulating lawyers and lawyer misconduct. That is the Bar Association. If you want to represent someone in court in any meaningful capacity, and he says something about like McKenzie advocates or McKenzie something. That's not legal representation. If you want to represent someone in court, you have to be part of the Bar Association. Part of that is swearing allegiance to uphold the Constitution of your state and your federal government. That's what I had to do. Like, that swearing in means anything to anyone, because we can all see that anyone who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution took that really seriously. I think if they did, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in today. And plus, I'm kind of the guy to go to about the Constitution of No Authority. I'm not the authority, but I like to consider myself an authority, because I've done lots and lots of episodes on it. If you go into the archives, I even have a little a tweet thread where I went through all the episodes that I dealt with the Constitution of No Authority. Of course, I didn't tell this guy that was criticizing me, because I shouldn't have to kowtow to him when my work on this subject, because he was saying even if he defends, quote, prosecutes only malum and se crimes, he will be erroneously promoting, and I think this guy threw out this terminology to kind of give the air that he knew what he was talking about. But even if he defends / prosecutes only malum and se crimes, he will be erroneously promoting the assertion that, quote, jurisdiction originates from the Constitution. This claim is always false, even if there was a legitimate crime committed. So it kind of goes on like this. In the same way, quote, he says, libertarian politician is a misnomer. Quote, anarchist lawyer or libertarian attorney are also misnomers and are oxymoronic when put together. Stooping to their level isn't an example worth sharing nor emulating, in my opinion. So he goes on, and I engaged. I did 3 tweets. These are the only 3 tweets that I made. And sorry, not to be like throwing out my Twitter drama in the show, because I think that's juvenile and I have better things to do than engage in Twitter drama. That's why I only had these 3 tweets. He hasn't watched a single one of my shows. Can't say that I have watched a single one of your shows. Didn't know you had any shows, right? So I've done a lot of work on the Constitution of No Authority, and he kind of goads me by saying that right here. I'll reconsider my position, he says, when I discover an example where Liberty Weekly clearly denounces the, quote, Constitution having any legitimate authority. Okay, that was episode 2 of the show. So, and this was a year ago. Or when he provides the evidence that proves a 230-year-old written instrument that nobody signed creates legitimate obligations on anyone. So he hasn't watched any of my shit. He's goaded me here, and I just didn't respond, because if anyone is at all familiar with my work, look at, these are all the episodes, full-length episodes I've done on the Constitution. So, and I do realize that there is an inherent bit contradiction in me being a member of the bar and facilitating people interacting with a monopoly justice system. I get it, okay? I do get it. In my defense, I was far along on this path when I discovered Rothbard and totally signed on to, ANCAPism and started Liberty Weekly to share these ideas. So, but my question is, right, when I have clients like the people who are in danger of losing a corner of their house because someone privately is treading on their rights, or when I have someone who entered a contract to buy a semi-truck and didn't get the credit that they traded in and have a dispute about this, or when I have someone who hired a building contractor to build their house and the contractor did a terrible job. I mean, you should see the pictures. They did a horrible job. Are they supposed to roll over and die and not engage with the not engage with the court system because it's statist or it's a monopoly system? Are they supposed to gather up a posse of people and go over to the contractor's place with guns and get them to submit and come back and fix these problems they had with their house? Or if you've been charged with a crime, wouldn't you rather have a lawyer? Even though the lawyer helps to facilitate, in some small way, gives legitimacy to the people prosecuting you, the court system is going to dance with you whether you want to dance with the court system or not. It's a monopoly. It has coercive ability to subpoena you in or to bring you in and haul you in and have its way with you. Would you rather have a lawyer that understands that taxation is theft and the illegitimacy of the state, or would you rather not? I mean, with his logic, CPAs, or people who do taxes, people who assist accountants who do the taxes, they're called CPAs, they also have to take a state-mandated test. That profession is also licensed by the state. Doctors also have to be a member of the, I don't know about the American Medical Association, but they have to be licensed. Would CPAs be worthy of condemnation because they have taken this licensing test? Moreover, you could say that CPAs actually help to facilitate taxation by assisting people in filing their taxes. But what CPAs really do is they try and find all the loopholes and minimize your tax burden. Once again, would you rather have a CPA who understands that taxation is theft, or would you rather not? I mean, I think it's a pretty simple thing. And I guess I don't really have too much else to say about that. I mean, aside from the fact that this person attacked me for a few days. Like 3 days. Seriously. So I'll put a link to this thread in the show notes for this episode if you would really like to go through it. I don't know if I'd suggest it or not. You might lose a few brain cells. But this is kind of what I deal with sometimes. What you would have on the Liberty Weekly emailing list. And so now we're going to give Bastard Chris his 15 minutes of fame. But the reason I don't engage in Twitter, Facebook arguments or Twitter arguments like this, and I didn't really spend any time on this, is because no one reads them. No one's mind is changed by these conversations, and my time is best allocated elsewhere. But I just think, what kind of special narcissistic dirtbag do you have to be to come in to a triumphant moment in someone's life that they've been struggling with and then just make it all about you and crap on whatever they're doing, you know? And I understand there are moral implications and there is a conversation to be had here, but what the hell, man? I mean, we're on the same side. So that's all I have to say about that. I think this episode is at about 42 minutes now. If you want to hear anything else about my experience, my first couple weeks being a lawyer, I guess my email address is patrick.mcfarland@libertyweekly.net. Send me some feedback. I really appreciate you guys listening to this show, and I think it's really special that you do. And I'm not here, you know, I'm out here trying to fight the fight for liberty. I understand that taxation is theft. I understand that the Constitution has no authority. I understand all these things, and moreover, I'm bringing this to you guys. I do not want the legal sphere to be the sphere of high-minded people who think they know what's best for everyone else. Even though, you know, I address the point that people are ignorant of the system. Those are average people, right? Don't let the ignorance leak into the ANCAP and voluntarist communities. I want to be a source that spreads this understanding and knowledge of the legal sphere to our community. I mean, I don't mean to pump myself up like this because I am just a guy, right? And there's other people that do this too, but like Stefan Kinsella. But what better person to have in our movement than someone who understands all of our principles, teaches our principles, and also is in the trenches. You know, in some certain sense, I'm out here. You know, I'm not perfect. I think no one is perfect. But I guess to my credit, and what I will say is that I'm out here. I'm putting myself out there. I'm in the arena. I'm fighting the fight. You know, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and to condemn me, especially when you don't have a wealth of content that I have built up over the last year and a half. So, I guess I don't mean to be preachy or drag the drama into it or anything like that, but that's what I'm trying to do, man. I just want you guys to understand the system and to make the system more accessible, make law more accessible to people that are not educated in it and people that don't have the time to be educated in it. Hopefully you can, and hopefully if you've listened to my show and you've gone through the work, and I've done a lot of full-length stuff, like go to libertyweekly.net/episodes, and you'll go to the master episode list and see everything that I've done in the last year and a half, trying to spread the ideas of the Constitution of No Authority. Mr. Bastard Chris, who doesn't even know the stuff that I've done, that just irritates me. But moreover, he does not even matter. Like, this is what matters: being in the arena, engaging in this conversation, trying to get and see what the real world is like so I can adapt our ideas to that reality, you know, and maintaining those principles. So if you go through libertyweekly.net/episodes, you can find all the work that I've done: Austrian business cycle theory, eugenics and the minimum wage, let's see here, nullification, war, corruption of the Constitution, other things that I've done, a primer on non-state justice systems, Lysander Spooner biography, Liberty Weekly and the Constitution of No Authority, Larkin Rose's Candles in the Dark about how to talk to status. You know, let's see, what else have I done? I'm just kind of hitting them up here. But the problem with judicial review, you know, these are all things that I've done. Go check out those archives. And I don't have much else to say about that. Briefly, I wanted to touch on the Kavanaugh situation, which, first of all, screw the Supreme Court. I don't care about the Supreme Court. It is sad that they have so much power and that they use that power in ways that are antithetical to liberty. I just am not a fan of the Supreme Court. They should not have the power of judicial review. Well, they should, except with the nuance of having the clear case doctrine, which I outlined in, I'm not sure if I outlined it in episode 2, libertyweekly.net/2, but also the Liberation Library episode 2 that I did. It's called The Truth About Judicial Review. And then I'll try and put that in the show notes page as well. I'm just not, here it is. libertyweekly.net/LL2, Liberation Library 2, the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. Oh, and libertyweekly.net/LL3, which is The Truth About Judicial Review, where I talk about why the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court's power should be according to the case law that happened in between the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution in the state courts. And after the Constitution was ratified, how the state courts dealt with this question of constitutionality. This is it. This is the episode right here. So everyone that I'm dealing with is stuck in this mainstream duopoly. Even in the legal sphere over here, I was brought back to earth to realize, unfortunately, most of the world is not ANCAP. Most of the world is not even libertarian or classical liberal. Well, you know how to support the Liberty Weekly podcast. Please sign up for that email list at libertyweekly.net/email. Also, check me out at Patreon on patreon.com/libertyweekly is where you can get it. I just revamped the Patreon not 2-3 weeks ago. I added a $1 tier level. So you can be a friend of the show for $1 and you'll get an email from me and a shout out on the show as well. So that's a good option for people who have a tight budget. I put in a new bio and I put in a new Patreon plug that you can view here. So that's a really great way. And I also, the bonuses and the show extras, I lowered the price for. So you can get audio extras of the show for, I think, only $3 a month. Right. Yep. Audio only versions of the show extras for $3 a month. And then $5 a month will get you video extras to the show. So whenever and you can see if you go to patreon.com/libertyweekly, all the extra stuff. Also, don't forget about my Amazon affiliate link at libertyweekly.net/Amazon. It will take you right to the homepage, the Amazon homepage. You just do your regular shopping. I'll get a commission at no further expense to you. Also, I think that's about it. Another way to help me out is just to share the show on social media, whether it's a comment, a share, or by word of mouth, man. That's how these things grow. If you know other libertarians, mention me, mention my show. I want to be the go-to guy for libertarian legal theory. I want to help you guys out. That's my thing. Also, give me a rating and review. I'm on all of the podcast platforms: Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I'm on all those things. So that's about it. I really appreciate you guys not only just joining me for this episode, but also for all the listens and all the time that you spent with my content. I really, really appreciate it. And that's about it. I don't know what else to say, because I still think it's crazy that people would listen to a show like this. So thank you guys for real, from the bottom of my heart. And for all of you who don't BS at me on Twitter or Facebook, I really appreciate it. But, you know, if you're a friend and you want to have a conversation with me, I don't have as much time as I used to, but I do respond to people and interact with people on social media. So if you find my stuff, send me a message, and I'll be good for a little chat, hopefully. But that's about it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. libertyweekly.net/94. Peace.